Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting of the Libby trustees together. We have the purpose of our meeting tonight is to have a conversation, and then we'll take up any discussions further with ourselves as members of the Board of Selectmen in a noticed meeting. Even though I'm not going to read the entire preamble, the reason we're having this meeting remotely is we are still following and being in accordance with state and federal health guidelines concerning physical distancing and separation. Good evening, Mr. Senecal. Glad to have you aboard. We have a few items on the agenda. And really, this is more of a conversation. I don't think we'll have any voting unless we want to vote, just for the sense of giving an idea to the Board of Selectmen as to what we think might be the right thing to do. I think the last time we got together as trustees, which actually was the first time, I think we accomplished a lot, but we left a couple of issues kind of hanging out there and that I think need to get dispositioned. We have received, and you all have read, the letter from the Friends of the Libby Museum that we received about a week and a half ago. And I think the questions that they've asked in that letter are actually quite straightforward and quite fair. With that, we're missing our colleague, Mr. Bowers. I'm sure he'll join us here momentarily, but we have now 4 of the 5 Libby trustees sitting here. Before I begin, any questions from you folks about what we want to accomplish tonight? Any clarifications? And then, if not, we'll move into the meeting. Anybody? Linda, Dave, Brad?
I'm going to try to see if I can get Dave Bowers.
Okay.
I will put a call in there.
Linda's off on the Dave Bowers hunt. Mr. Senecal, Mr. Harriman, anything from your side? Okay,
I'm
cool.
all set.
All right.
I think the things on the agenda will bring everything out we want to talk about, Paul. So I think we're looking good.
Okay. All right, Jim, how about you? Anything on your end?
No, thank you, Paul.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right. All right, so there's really just a simple, straight question. Let's just try to get down to just simple stuff. And the first question that is on the agenda, there you are, Jim, is we asked the voters to appropriate some money to us. They did in the recent warrant articles. The question that's on the table, and I'll ask Jim maybe to help us here, is should the Libby be physically restored in place? And restored meaning the physical footprint of the building, mindful of the fact that perhaps we want to consider doing some improvements to the air quality in the building, which, shorthand, that could be air conditioning. So the first question is, should we restore the building? And Jim, I'm going to ask you, do we have, and I know the answer, but I wanted to just make sure that everybody's watching knows what the answer is. Do we have a document in our hands from anybody that tells us what a restoration price tag would be?
Thank you, Paul. There are multiple ways to look at and be able to answer that question. So the quote which we have in front of us today is relative to an addition of approximately 1,200 square feet to the Libby Museum and a renovation. The interesting part about the renovation portion of the project, that renovation is in alignment with Secretary of Interior standards related to LCHIP funding, which I think one of the things that we've identified, while the LCHIP funding is a valuable resource to be able to leverage some funds, the restrictions associated with that are quite often very lofty because of construction techniques. Items have to be restored in kind. And that can, based on today's construction standards, that can be a little bit pricey and difficult. So the straight answer, Paul, for a renovation to the existing structure, no, we do not have that number.
Should we have that number? Should we go get that number? Because that's really the essence of question number one. If we recommended to the, I'll get to you a second, Linda. If we recommended to the Board of Selectmen ourselves that we should restore the Libby, we should know what the bill of material is and what the number is. And so, Linda, I'll let you please speak up.
I just kind of divided what we as a board need to think about into 4 categories. I know you usually like 3, Paul, but I've got 4. One is to keep the small natural history museum, make it seasonal, do not make it museum quality air, temperature, or moisture, whatever it is. Instead, do a moisture control based on the 2017 report is for an unheated building. Continue to adjust the turnbuckles of the tie rods that we put in 2015, which was around $200,000, and do other needed repairs. You figure you'd have a part-time director and operating budget around $50,000. Second choice is keep that small natural history museum. It's seasonal with museum quality environment. You renovate the building. You do a part-time director, probably the operating budget around $60,000, not including the bond and interest payments. And you have the architect that did the expansion redo those documents. Or the next one is expand the museum, renovate, additional collection, seasonal director 3/4 of the time, operating budget probably around $70,000 with the bond, entrance, and principal. And the last one is a full expansion of the museum and renovation. The same addition to the collection, open year round, probably about $100,000 to the operating budget, a full-time curator. So we're talking about a higher quality person, and then you also have the bond and interest payment. So I saw really 4 different ways we as a board could go.
So Linda just mushed my 2 issues into 4. Thank you very much for doing that.
Anytime, Paul.
The only, and so that's fine. Putting them into those 4 buckets is good. The only thing I think we would all agree is we really don't know the costs. We don't have a lockdown cost number for these 4 options, but I think it's probably not a bad idea to take those 4, put them on the table and say, which one do we think makes most sense for the taxpayers and for the town. So if I understand you, Linda, see, the first would be, and please don't misunderstand what I'm saying, fix it up, tighten it up, make it seasonal, don't do any air conditioning in the building. The second would be restore it, put some air conditioning in the building, don't expand it, unless you have to put a bump out to put in the air conditioning. The third is, and the fourth, I really don't understand the difference.
Well, the difference is the amount of time you're opening it. All right. All
so
right.
The third and the fourth would be the same capital. It would just be the amount of time the building's open.
Yeah, and it would affect the operating budget. You know, you got the capital to it, and then you got the operating. What changed in all this was the capital and the operating expense. And to me,
You got it.
It seems to make sense to keep it seasonal. So that's where I am in any of those 3 seasons.
How about going at it this way? Do we think that this should be a year-round facility? Anybody?
I don't.
I don't.
I don't believe it should either.
Brad?
I
Paul?
don't think we can support year round.
Yeah, Brad?
Yeah, Paul, that question whether it should be open year round or not, but the way I kind of look at it is by doing the expansion with the renovation allows us to put the museum into a condition that would support the exhibits that are in there to, maintain their life, or extend their life. I don't think we should personally, and I don't think the approach has been from the get-go to open year round, but to mainly get the, I guess the HVAC system, whatever you want to call it there, to have the system, be able to condition the air, control the moisture, control the heat so that our exhibits last a good long time. I think that's been kind of the issue that we're looking at it, that I'm looking at it from, I'd say, put it that way.
So Linda offered us 4 options. And Brad, are you suggesting that you'd like to see the place open year round or not?
No.
No. Hi, Mr. Bowers.
Hi, how are you?
Good. We missed you. Well, you'll have to catch up. So we have at least.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine, Dave. We have a majority of the trustees here that are suggesting that Linda, your option number 4 doesn't work.
That's good. And I wonder whether option 1 works either, but that's.
Okay, hang on. So we got 3 options to look at. Option 1, fix it up. Tighten up the turnbuckles, keep it seasonal. Option 2 is, I'm going to use the word, and then if I misspeak, you tell me, restore it. Restore it on its footprint.
Yes.
Make it
Existing
nice.
building, restore existing building.
And make the air quality in the building really good.
Yeah, the
Whereas
museum
option
quality.
1 is, yeah, museum quality. You have a museum quality building. Option 3 is add 1,200 square feet and go find $2.9 million. So now we're at those 3 options. Which one of those 3? I can't support option 1. I just don't think fixing it up is the right thing to do. I think we'll be revisiting it again. Mr. Senecal.
Well, I think it would depend on what do you consider restore. And I think that a lot of the issues, just like any building, start at the foundation and go up from there.
Mm-hmm.
We know we have some issues with foundation, and we know we have some issues with structural still underneath, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not opposed, again, what does restore mean to me? I think that the AC, heating and AC is a must, just to keep the building quality, so it's not going to fall down. That's number 1. The second thing is the AC and heat will definitely help whatever is in the building.
Yep.
It would certainly help the building itself for many more years to come. If we just fix it up and don't put in heating and air conditioning, I think we're just wasting money. That's where I'm kind of headed as far as restore, expand, seasonal. Like you said, what, 2.9? That's a lot of money too. But I think in order to make a complete decision, at least for me, I don't know what restore means. What does it mean, and how much is it going to cost? What's the outline of restore? If it means putting a foundation over it, under it, I mean, upgrading some of the electrical, which needs to be done, painting, put in, insulation, heating and air conditioning. That to me makes sense. Right off as far as discussion, in-depth discussion. What that amount is, I think Meridian or whoever has been involved in this the past could probably give us a pretty good idea relatively quickly, because there are some specifications and information out there that they have. So the other one that Linda brought up, and I'm glad she categorized them because that was good, easy for me to make a decision. Restore, expand, and still be seasonal. That's a lot of money to have a seasonal building. In the operating budget, you know, yes, it's going to cost us more for electricity and whatever for heat and air conditioning, but you know, the building, if we want to save the building, we got to do that. We've got to. I mean, it's been shown to us that if we don't do something with that building soon, it's going to be a problem. We're going to have more mildew. We're going to have more issues with the building moving, which it still is. I would believe it is. So, you know, I would want to know some of those answers. And I don't think it would take long to get those answers.
No.
That's where I'm coming from.
Linda, would you be okay if your option 2, if we kind of tried to shorthand it a little bit to say we would make the building as if new within current codes, seasonal with air conditioning?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to use the word air conditioning. I think we're talking about a heating and cooling system.
Yes,
The whole
we are.
thing, not just air conditioning. So I won't go for air conditioning. That's why I use museum quality environment, because you have to have both to get that. The reason I gave those for is when we go out to sell this to the public, we can say we took 4 issues. We decided that having a full, you know, all year round facility was not what we wanted. And we didn't want to put a Band-Aid on it, which led us to these other 2.
I got you, Mr. Flowers. We'll get to it. Hang on.
And so that's where I was kind of coming here. To me, it makes sense to do and whatever it is, renovation does upgrade make it easier for you, Dave Senical? If I said upgrade what I was talking about, you'd upgrade the water, the electricity, you put insulation in for the heating, opposed to renovate.
The foundation,
Yeah,
the structure.
it's just a matter of what do you in your mind think as restoration or repairs?
Okay.
It's mostly the same thing. We're talking about the same issues. We're talking about, you know, plumbing, heating, air conditioning, electrical, you know, code requirements, the whole 9 yards. We also, you know, it's pretty easy today to meet any, quote, energy requirements, which we don't have in the state anymore. But, you know, to meet energy requirements, you know, the types of insulation today make it very easy to get R values that save you money, whether it's heating or air conditioning. So, you know, that's where
Mr. Bowers has had his hand up. Mr. Bowers, I'd like to recognize you, please.
I think it's sort of like being given a pet airplane, or the town been giving a pet elephant or an airplane. Maybe we should have some zero-based thinking of this is sort of like a millstone in many ways. Maybe do a study on it, although I know studies have been done like by Alba. Do a study on it and say, is this a pet elephant that we really want to nourish? Or is there a plan B where we could hive it off to a private foundation that would take care of it in the town? Right now, it's deeded to the selectmen of the town, which means it's deeded to the town. Is there some way that the foundation or someone else could just take it over and the town would not own it? That's my thought.
So Mr. Bowers has, and I don't know if it's an additional option, which would be take it off the books of the town. That could be an option. Let's hold that for a minute, because I want to make sure we're clear on the ones that Linda has tabled. So I'll tell you where I am. I'm kind of on the first option you gave, Linda, which was fix it, I call it the
Really, it's
fix it up option.
Yeah.
I'm not there.
No, I'm not either.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm not
me neither.
comfortable with not being there too.
I just think it's it's a museum, whether it's seasonal or not. It's a museum, and we need to treat it as if it is a museum. So fixing it up isn't going to do it for me. And if somebody wanted to come and ask us to take it off, take care of it for us, I'm sure we'd listen to that. I'm not sure there's anybody who's going to beat a path to our door. So if someone wants to do that, that would be fine. So we're really, at least for the 4 that Linda has tabled, we're down to the second option. And again, you corrected me, and I appreciate that. The second option, as I look at it, is as if new within current codes and including environmental, environmental quality, HVAC, whatever it is. And then the third option was expand.
Yeah.
Add another 1,200 square feet, $2.9 million.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's just park ourselves on those two. I think we've chopped off the fix it up, and I think we chopped off the year-round full expansion thing. So now we're down to number 2 and number 3.
Correct.
Which is, so where are you guys at? Generic term, of course. Linda's not a guy. Where are you guys at? With, all right, fine. Where are you guys at with number 2 or number 3?
I think I made it, at least I thought I made it pretty clear that I'm in favor of number 2. And I just want a little more information, actually on both. I think we know number 3, what that's going to cost. I don't know what number 2 is going to cost.
Oh, that's why I asked Jim at the beginning of the meeting. He didn't know either. So we got to go.
Yeah.
We got to go
Well,
find out.
What's he know?
Yeah. Yeah. How do you?
But we do know that Jim did ask the question to all the architects, and they can get it based on the work they've already done. So it's not like it's going to be that hard to get.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
Mr.
that's
Harris,
what I said. I think it would be very easy for them to put numbers together for a couple of options even.
Well, Mr. Harriman, please.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Glenn and Dave said it right. I think, Alba will be able to come up with that number fairly easy. They have the most information in the books already to give us that cost estimate for, number 2 to kind of renovate the building without an addition. But I just wanted to bring up one thing too, just to kind of keep in mind with everything too. If we did kind of approach it with the number 2 without the expansion, we'd have to look at what type of funding is going to be available to us as far as grants and stuff go, because my gut would tell me that by going to number 2, that we would probably lose the Bieber Foundation grant that they're talking about. We might be able to, as you mentioned earlier, Paul, we might be able to get into the L chip to get some of that instead, or along with it, or whatever there. But we wouldn't have the ability to accept either one of those exhibits that were being donated either if we didn't do the expansion. So I just want to make sure everything's out on the table. That's all. That's the only reason I'm bringing that up. So.
And thank you for that, Brad. And I personally, I can't speak for a donor. That's their business. But I've hung around museums long enough to know that exhibits rotate through museums. That you have our friends across the street at the World War II 1939-45. They rotate their exhibits, and if a donor says, "Hey, I would like to have my artifacts get rotated through that facility on an annual or semi-annual basis," and we worked something out where we stored those in a museum quality way, I don't know. It would obviate the need to go expand the museum, but we could still have a fresh, exciting thing. So anyways.
Paul?
Yes, sir.
Having seen both exhibits, that have been supposedly that people want to give to the town, I've seen and familiar with both of them. Mm-hmm. The Lava collection is relatively small and could be probably rotated pretty easily, as opposed to the doctor's exhibit, which is one of every mammal in North America. So that's a lot. That's huge. That's a lot. To rotate that, I think, is why they needed the addition, so that materials could be stored in the basement and then rotated up into the museum. So both of those I don't know what you want to call them. Exhibits. One's small and one's quite large.
Yep.
I guess is the best way to put it.
So
So
Brad,
one could be easily rotated, or most of it could be actually probably put in the museum somewhere.
Yep. Okay, Linda?
Yep.
Yeah, I guess my feeling is, and I think this is where we're going to come down, until we get the price tag for number 2, do we know how to compare it with the price tag to number 3? So in other words, number 2 would be right now mainly on the taxpayer's dime, which is what I think Brad is talking about, because that other fundraising was for the addition. So what's that figure, and what is it in comparison to what it would have cost the taxpayers with the expanded, and how much of that expansion was the taxpayer going to have to pay? And they were going to have to pay some of the cost of that. So we don't know what we're really looking at, because I think the taxpayer, or the response that we got from the budget committee, and that this warrant article for 300,000 only passed by 58%, was the cost. And so if you were going to do the expansion and it was going to cost the taxpayers the same as the second option, would that change any of our minds?
Well, you're exactly right, Linda. It's not only the one-time cost, but it's the ongoing cost as well. So it'd be the cost to do number 2 versus number 3 capital, who pays, and cost for number 2, number 3 ongoing, who pays.
Yep.
So those are things we have to do. So unless I misunderstand, the sense here is our preference is to understand the costs for number 2. We kind of know the cost for number 3 at the capital side. We don't know the cost for number 3 at the operating side.
I think we had some estimates.
Yeah, I think there was one of these the crazy selectman that was asking for a business plan over and over again, and I kept getting.
I don't know why that guy did that.
I don't know who that guy was. We need to know the costs for number 2. So when we get together as a select board, Jim, we're probably going to ask for the cost for number 2. So that's probably something to keep in mind. And we want to be able to compare, capital to capital, operating to operating, 2 versus 3. I think that's kind of, is that a sense of where you guys are at?
Yep, I am.
That's where I am.
Okay. So that takes us then to the second part of this. And I don't, and this is Brad, we're going to ask you to weigh in on this. Our friends of the Libby have asked us for clarity. Oh, Mr. Bowers, where are you? What did you do? You put something up in the air. He said yes. Mr. Bowers said yes.
Mr. Chairman?
For some clarity. Yes, sir.
Just before we move on to the next topic, the only thing that I would like clarity on about this is the path that you would want to take relative to plan number 2. And that means you want to look at L-chip funding, knowing some of the strings is tied with L-chip, or would you prefer to go a different model, which we would have greater control over and not be tied to those strings?
I'll leave this to my colleagues and I'll weigh in at the end. But I do have some feelings about this. Anybody want to weigh in on Jim's question? Should we prosecute an L-chip grant, or should we just go straight to trying to fund it ourselves?
before I made a complete decision, I'd want to know what the numbers are.
I agree with you,
I-
Dave.
I have no
Correct.
idea which way I'd want to go until I have some numbers. And then we can tell if you have a breakdown of it. LCHIP requires certain things, and we'll know then what that amount of money is that we can go to LCHIP for. But until we have that, I would say stay away from LCHIP, except that, you know, I think most of us have some idea as far as the parameters, but probably not all. At least I don't know all the parameters. But certainly, I would want to know some numbers before I made a complete decision, because it might be cheaper and easier for us to control everything ourselves. But I don't know that yet. I don't have that number.
Brad?
Yeah, Paul, I also think that by requesting to get the numbers for, you know, option number 2 here, to have Alba go in and provide us the numbers for the renovation of the existing, they're very familiar with the LCHIP requirements and all that. And they would be able to give us a lot of guidance on what you would be able to do within that model if LCHIP would be worth going after or whatever, or there's some other options and stuff. When we were working with them on the feasibility study, they were very informative on a lot of that and some other different options as far as you know, fundraising and stuff. So they would be able to give us quite a bit of insight along the way as we went through this.
Yeah, Jim, I think you've heard a pretty loud voice here. My point on this would be, if it adds time and cost and we can't, and it adds restrictions that we don't feel are right, numbers will drive the decision in large part. And without those, we're talking in speculation mode here.
Yeah, so what gleaning from this is basically a 2A and a 2B. 2A would be with LCHIP funding, 2B would be without LCHIP funding.
That's reasonable.
Look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, well, as long as 2A and 2B have a time to begin, time to end, you know, we don't want to have an LCHIP process that takes longer than, you know what I mean? As long as we can denominate this by dollars, time, and complexity, that would be, I guess, okay.
And to also achieve
Go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say, and also to achieve the goals that we're looking for within the 2A and 2B, you know, to get some air quality in the building, things like that. You know, we don't want to sacrifice what we're trying to do just to get some LCHIP money. We want to be able to get a goal set and then see if LCHIP would work or not.
Yeah, and if we were to go for LCHIP, we would not be able to go for LCHIP funding for construction until a year from now, which, just to be clear, that would be the time frame that a year from now we would have to be ready to launch that work into LCHIP. So,
well, I think you also have the benefit of Alba, who has been through the LCHIP process a number of times, and we also have the benefit of Maggie Steer as a coach, who can help us think this thing through, and perhaps that's the right way to approach it, is to get these two people to help go through effect to get together on the 2A. Okay. I don't know if I added any clarity to Libby. Are we done with this? Move on to Friends of Libby. Is that okay?
I don't know about anybody else, but Paul, you're breaking up pretty badly.
Am I?
Yeah.
Terrible.
Periodically, I tried to shut some other things down to see if it was me.
Yeah.
It might be me. It might be stepping on my internet connection. Brad, are we, you know, you're close with the Friends of Libby. Are we giving them any clarity on their letter based upon this conversation tonight, or are there things that we still need to discuss?
Yeah, my opinion is not yet. Because they're really struggling with how to proceed with the fundraising Is that kind of feeling as if we're not going to go through with, the way I'm kind of interpreting this, if we're not going through with a renovation addition, they feel as though we'd have to return a lot of the donations and pledges that they've already received. So I
Do we
think
know how
probably
much
some more
money that is,
conversation.
Brad, other than, do we know, aside from the Biber Foundation, do we have letters in file, a spreadsheet that says, here's the amount of restricted pledges and gifts we've received that are predicated on an expansion? Do we know what that number is?
The last I heard, I don't have anything in front of me, concrete right now. Last I heard, we're in the $90,000 range.
So just so that I'm clear, we've received pledges and gifts totaling approximately $90,000 predicated on the expansion of the Libby, option 3.
The reason I say that is because that is the way it's been presented to all these people. Now, if they found out that we're going to do just a renovation and not expansion, I'm sure a certain percentage of them would still continue to remain in the with their grants or pledges on it. I don't have a feel for what that number would be, but
Trustees, what advice do we have for them? Linda?
Well, one of the things that I would, in what they're saying is, what do we do? And one of the things that I would suggest is they keep on fundraising and say that right now we're looking at either, renovating, upgrading the existing facility and air quality, or we're going to do the expansion. At this point, we just haven't made that decision. We're looking at the price between the two. Because if they care about the Libby, saving the Libby, they're going to save the Libby whether they save the existing building, is my kind of feeling. But I don't know if that's where they are. I mean, I would have written out a pledge that would have said for either or. And I think that's what
you'd ask for more unrestricted giving, using fundraising parlance. You'd ask for unrestricted giving that says, I'm here to support the Libby.
Yes.
If it's for what we'll call option 2, fine. If it's for option 3, fine.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
As opposed to a restricted giving,
Correct.
it says option 3 only. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Mr. Senecal, did you throw your hand up in the air, or are you throwing something at the camera? No.
No. I was just checking out my Verizon connection.
Shut up. Just be quiet. Just be quiet. Hush your mouth. We never really had a capital campaign per se, or maybe we did through the Friends of the Libby for the expansion. And I'm not hearing tonight that we are missing a capital campaign fundraising for the expansion of the Libby. We may do that at a time, but we're not doing that now. Am I not clear? Is that where we're at?
we haven't had a campaign similar to what the Friends of Town Hall and the Friends of the Library and Abenaki have done as far as going out, contacting, different residents of the town and sitting down with them. They've had a different approach as far as doing a mostly online type fundraising, word of mouth and stuff to this point. We've had discussions about getting geared up to be more of a model as to what they used when they did the Friends of Town Hall for their campaign and stuff like that. It's kind of one of the things we were gearing up to get into that mode. So we're kind of in flux right now, I guess is what I would say on that.
Yeah, and the reason I punctuated this is I do think that fundraisers require clarity because donors want to know what they're giving treasure to. again, I'm not trying to drive for anything. I'm just trying to tell you what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing us say that we should set the Friends of the Libby on a course to start a capital campaign for the expansion of the Libby. We don't have the data that tells us to do that.
Right,
Because we don't have the answer to number 2. Right, Linda?
They did, I'm hunting through my files now. They did send out a fundraiser to the general public last year. And I don't know, I don't have all my, I have it here, right? I found it. And let me see what that said.
God, she found it.
God, that's a miracle. The envelope said that you could do it for the restoration or the general fund. And I don't know if you can see it, but it was this. I don't think you could. And it had one of these up here. And it went out. It was what we had in terms of fundraiser. It says nothing. It says restoration. So it doesn't specifically, what does the letter say? Wait a second here.
And usually it goes out with a newsletter. There's an annual newsletter that goes out to a group of people. You'll probably explain more about it.
As you're doing that, Mr. Bowers would like to comment. Please, Mr. Bowers.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine.
In 1994, or whenever it was, I got involved in a capital campaign to do the history of Wolfeboro. The town pledged $10,000 toward it, plus another $10,000 if we needed it. It turned out that we had a campaign where you could be a grand donor. That's double entendre. That means we gave $1,000 and so forth. We wound up raising 3 times more money than we needed. So if there's a capital campaign, I'm not going to be involved in the front line, but I have some ideas that have worked very well in the past by honoring people who give the money. And we also had some with raising money for the town hall.
Oh, sure. Okay. So Linda, you have a document that says there was really for restoration of the Libby, save the Libby.
I'm trying, I found the letter part of it. And I'm just seeing if they were looking for L-chip restoration plan. They do talk about a restoration plan was presented in 2019 at a public meeting. No, it's for the whole thing because it says $2.4 million includes restoration of the main building, insulating and heating, cooling, and a modest rear addition. So it was the full project was what went out
So
here.
Yeah, so Brad's right. That $90,000 that may have been raised as a consequence of that type of a writing.
Yep.
Came from people who thought they were voting on option 3.
Yep.
And we probably owe them some clarity. Anything else about the letter, Brad, that we need to address?
Just reading through it here, they do put a comment on one of the bottom paragraphs. They kind of say that, if public support for the proposal is not possible due to the conflicting, fiduciary responsibilities of the trustees and responsibilities of selectmen of the town, the Friends of the Museum Board will proceed as follows. Lack of support for a proposal would be assumed. No further fundraising efforts would be possible, and previous donations would need to be returned. So, I wasn't involved with these last couple of meetings here because we were having our task force meetings at the same time. So, when I saw this, it was the first time I saw it was when it was sent out to us here. So, I guess I'm kind of interpreting from that is they're kind of drawing a line in the sand here that you know, they want to go, they want to see us support the full, you know, the whole enchilada here, and otherwise, they're going to consider, you know, backing off and just not proceeding any further with helping out and stuff. So I would know more tomorrow night when I, you know, go to the meeting with them. You know, going to do a Zoom meeting there and have a discussion over what we talked about here tonight and kind of see what their thoughts are from the feedback from that.
Paul,
Yes, sir.
again, I'm not really ready to make a decision one way or the other on either one of these tonight, certainly.
We're not supposed to.
I think that most of us, from what I can hear, want to know what number 2, if you will be. Restore, heat, air conditioning, insulation, you know, foundation, whatever. You know, it may come out that the better thing to do would be to go with the restore and expand and still have it seasonal. And, you know, we collect this other monies from these different organizations that are willing to help us out. And it might be, the numbers could come out somewhat the same. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to make a decision tonight, but I think what Brad should be aware of and take with him that, you know, we're not sitting down, we're not ready to throw in the towel, we're not ready to do nothing to the Libby. But I think that, you know, the Friends of Libby should realize that there is another option, and we're going to look at it.
I think actually we did come to a couple of conclusions that we can discuss as selectmen. We concluded that, and I'm going to be disrespectful to what I'm about to say, throwing paint and nails at the building is a bad idea. Fixing it up is not the model, at least that these trustees, us, think is a good idea. We also don't think it's a good idea to run this thing year round. Now, we could be proved otherwise, but we don't think a full expansion year round is really the right thing to do. So we're down between number 2, which is, I'm calling it as if new with within current codes and environmental controls, or number 3, expand. And what's missing is the distance between number 2 and number 3 is how much,
Right.
how hard, and when.
Yep.
And Jim's gonna, when we meet as selectmen, we'll ask Jim. Linda.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we have to keep in mind, and I went back at looking how the taxpayer has supported the different projects we've done on the Libby. In 2013, we split $100,000 between the library and the Libby. That got a 79% positive vote, and that was to do some kinds of repairs. In 2015, we asked the voters for $200,000 to deal with the structural issues at the Libby. That's when we put in those tie rods to hold the building together, which we haven't done. What we're supposed to is tighten those tie rods to keep that building together. That passed by 84%. The feasibility studies, and there were 2 warrant articles on that. The first one was for $75,000, and this is in 2018, and the taxpayer was paying $25,000. That passed by 72. The feasibility study in 2019, which didn't use any taxpayers' money, received 78%. The 2020 capital reserve account, 300,000, made 58%. So, and we know that there were 3 selectmen who didn't vote for number 3, and there were no budget committee members who voted for it. And I think that's the other piece I'm looking at, is that I'm questioning whether there is the support in the community for that big of a project and that expansion. And that's why I started heading for what happens if we do number 2. And then the issue becomes, what is the price tag between the 2 of them? But that was what led me to start really looking, is that it didn't seem like we had the support in the community. And At 58%, we're not gonna get a bond issued through.
And if you just do set aside the monies that we did not appropriate from the taxpayer, we're knocking down $600,000 in the past handful of years. And so back to the conversation, which was really our agenda. Number two, or the first item on our agenda, is should we restore the Libby in place, which I think Linda has embellished a little bit, and thank you for doing it. We need to know the cost, the difficulty, and the time, and whether L-chip or non-L-chip is going to get us to the goal line. Number three, we kind of have a good idea of what that is. We know what that's going to cost on the capital side. Though we don't know what that's going to cost on the operating side, nor do we know what number two costs on the operating side. We kind of have an idea, but we don't really know. So that's kind of where we are. I don't think we're giving our friends at the Libby much clarity. If I were a fundraiser, I would be raising funds to restore the Libby right now. And I would say to a donor, and God help us if we can raise a whole ton of money like today happened in Give New Hampshire. If we could raise, a ton of money, we would go back to the voters and say, we've raised a ton of money, and you don't have to come up with a ton of money, and we're gonna do so. That would be so. My advice would be go raise unrestricted money. Do not raise restricted monies predicated on the expansion of the Libby. Linda.
I totally agree with you, Paul.
Brad.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I agree too. And I just want to, say that I was bringing up some of these other things because I want to get them all out on the table here as far as the, the Beaver grant, stuff like that.
Yep.
But as a selectman and stuff, we have to be fiscally responsible here too. So I completely support, the need and the desire to go out and get this quote for option number two. Because as Dave Senecal said, we need to have the numbers to compare.
Right.
Then we can weigh in.
Yep.
If we got a grant we're losing or gaining or whatever there, we could work the numbers there and see which balances out better or not. But we need to have the two sets of numbers to look at. And I completely agree with that. And I'd be happy to bring that to the Friends of Libby tomorrow night and stuff and explain it and go that route.
Yeah, they're stubborn things. Numbers are stubborn things. They generally tell something. Okay, so anything,
Well,
Linda?
I have one
Yes.
thing on the letter, and it was that paragraph down at the end, the sentence. It talked about whether there was, it says, if the public support for the proposal is not possible due to the conflicting fiduciary responsibilities of the trustees and the fiduciary responsibility of the selectmen. I don't see that we have conflicting responsibilities, and I think that needs to be, explained to them. If there's some issue of whether we need to take possession of the building, we can go get a fiduciary deed. It's still everything the way it is, but I don't want them to believe that we have some kind of conflicting fiduciary responsibilities in our two different jobs.
I don't feel that I have. I don't know. Does anybody sitting here feel they do? Brad, Dave?
No.
No. I don't feel conflicted. I think that as a trustee, it's my question would be, can we whatever we invest, or as Linda likes to say, whatever we appropriate, whatever we invest, can we run it? Can we grow it? And grow it, I mean grow memberships and grow visitation, and not necessarily grow the physical plant. But I don't feel conflicted. Okay, Brad, anything? Linda's got another one. Hang on.
There's one more. They're asking about the $300,000 that's in our capital reserve account, and what do we see? Can they put it all towards the project? And my feeling is, based on what we might need to do with repairs or whatever else, if there's money we need, if we need to tighten those turnbuckles or whatever before we get to the larger project, that's where we're going to get the money from. What's left over, we absolutely would put towards the bigger project. But that's one of their questions they're asking.
I guess my sense would be, that 300,000, is going to be if you think about phase 3, which would be a capital campaign, you have to go through 2 in order to get to phase 3. You got to fix the existing structure before you put something else on it. And I think we probably would easily spend $300,000. So I would say the 300,000 really is going to get, my view is focused on getting us through phase 2. If that helps, people raise money for phase 3, and we say there's a capital campaign, great.
But if we had something major go wrong at the Libby before we got to that, and we needed to spend $50,000, we'd go to that capital reserve to do that. And whatever's left over would go towards that phase 3 that you're talking about. And I think that would be helpful for them to understand that.
Yep. You okay with that, Brad?
Yeah, no, absolutely. 'Cause I anticipate we'd be using some of that to pay for what we're gonna be talking about next year on the, to do another survey on the measurements of the building and stuff, which is coming up in a few minutes. Adjusting of the turnbuckles, things like that. I anticipate we're gonna use some of that to get there. We're not just gonna go out, I feel very comfortable that we're not gonna go out as a board and say, oh yeah, well, we've got 300,000, we're gonna spend it on little things on the museum and use it all up. We're gonna do what we need to do to hold us over till we decide how we're moving forward with this thing. So, yeah, I agree.
Okay. So before we go to the laser measurements, we know that budget season, now that we got this little work at home thing behind us, budget season is coming upon us quickly. And we're probably going to have, and capital improvement is coming upon us. We need to have some clarity on what we're going to do here at the Board of Selectmen level, because it's got to get into the cycle and into the flow. So Jim knows that. I saw him grimace as I did that. A big grimace came on his face. Okay, having said that, thanks for that. Any questions before we move to the next topic, which is the laser measurements? Any of my colleagues here? Seeing none. Mr. Pinio, you want to talk about measuring with a laser?
Yes, so I did receive an estimate back from Meridian. That estimate is in line with what it was during the previous measurement, which was performed last year at $9,500. I think it's critical that we do that this year based on some of the stabilization work which was performed at the Libby over the past year. If you recall, about this time last year, we had the floor stabilized in that corner where the floor joists were separating. And I feel it's critical that we do that work. That was when those turnbuckles were installed. It was suggested that this be an annual repair or an annual evaluation. So we're looking at approximately $9,500 to have that work performed. And I would not propose at this point to take that out of the Libby Museum Capital Reserve Fund. I would actually propose, and I don't have the exact number on me at this point, utilizing the Stroth funds, which I believe there's about $45,000 left in that account, but I've got to get clarity on that with the audit taking place this week. It's been a little bit challenging to get those numbers. So that's kind of where we're at on that one. So I'll leave that in your hands at this point. If you're good with it, I know we discussed it previously. I'll reach out to Meridian and see if I can get the work scheduled.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what the schedule is.
Yeah, hang on a second, just a second, Linda. The question I had with Jim today, we spoke briefly about this, because I asked him the killer question we had at the beginning is, do we know how much it would cost to do the phase 2? And I said, if should we spend the $9,500, do the laser measurements? And we'll either find the building's moving or not. It's one or the other. It's either moving or it isn't moving. But if we've kind of come to the point where we say, we're not just gonna throw nails and paint at this place. We're gonna actually price out going after it. Do we need to do the laser measurements? And I think what you're saying, Jim, is we probably do, even if we decided to do a phase two.
Yeah, Paul, and I don't have the document right in front of me, but I do recall the discussion that once those turnbuckles were installed, that laser measurement should be a regular occurrence to ensure that everything is stable. And especially since we've done some structural stabilization, and it's been almost a year since that's occurred. It's really important that we have that. And I did forward, I believe, to Dave Senecal and Brad Harriman at their request, the previous measurements. If you did not receive those, let me know and I can get them to you.
I have them.
Yeah, I didn't
Linda,
get
you had
them.
your hand up?
Yeah, I'm totally
Linda.
against it. We spent $200,000 in 2015. We were to tighten those turnbuckles every year. There were tie rods, and the turnbuckles was to bring that building back together. We haven't bothered to do it. I don't think we even did it in 2019 after we realized we didn't do it. It cost us $95,000. We did one in 2013, 2014, did repairs, didn't tighten the turnbuckles. 2019, we did another one. We didn't turn the turnbuckles. And to me, it's a waste of money. We're going to get another thing. And if it tells us something, I can't even get the written report about that out. Nobody knows where that is. My feeling is we're just taking money and we're throwing it out the door, and we're not doing what we're supposed to. So I'm not willing to spend another $9,500, on something that we aren't even doing what was recommended after we spent $200,000.
Other trustees, Mr. Senecal, Mr. Bowers, Mr. Harriman, who wants to put their hand up? Come on, put your hand. Dave's got his hand up. Dave Senecal.
Well, I don't disagree with you, Linda, but I do disagree in not finding out, even without tightening the turnbuckles, if this building is still moving. I know it's very fractional, so to speak, from the numbers that I saw, that it is moving. But I agree with you that if those turnbuckles weren't tightened, shame on us. Yep. But on the other hand, in order to get the numbers, there may be something in the, I can't remember all the report, we read so much stuff, but the architects had some information on that in reference to the foundation and cracking and so forth. And that could be what's creating the building to move. Yes, I agree. We've spent a lot of money to take those, take that ceiling and everything down, open that up, put in the turnbuckles, do all that. It shouldn't be that difficult with the ladder systems and stuff today and the type of things they have, which I think they had a portable lift in there, I think, electric lift.
Yep.
They did.
It wouldn't be hard for us to have somebody go in there and, but again, it goes back to what we talked about for years past, is asset management, and somebody in the town that's going to be responsible. I mean, I took a walk around the town hall the other day, just for an example. You know how many loose bricks are coming out of that building right now? All over, especially in the front. It's not being addressed. We have a professional mason that's on our payroll now. How hard? Well, I know it's spring and everything's getting put together, and I'm not going to put it on Jim, but still, I would want to know if that building's still moving. I really
So,
would.
Mr. Senecal says, if I can shorthand, you're supportive of the expenditure.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Harriman and Mr. Bowers.
Yeah, I'll weigh in, Paul. I think I agree with Dave. I think one of the key things he stated too was that, you know, we had these other measurements done and we didn't do anything with them. You know, that's shame on us. My opinion would be move forward, do these measurements again. And if we're seeing some movement in there, then make sure that we follow up with the corrective measures that we can do to stabilize the building, you know, for now and stuff, moving forward. Plus, I believe too, that this was going to give the architects another round of data to use to present us with option number 2. We're going to have, you know, data from, you know, a year ago when they did the measurements. Now we'll have another set to see if it's done anything recently. It can only go to solidify what we would get for information and to produce a more accurate number to come up with a restoration cost for the building. So I'd be in support of going ahead with the measurements again for this year.
Mr. Bowers. Now we can't hear you. When we need you the most.
I agree. I have headphones on which interfere with my regular talking. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine now. Thank you, sir.
I can't hear you, but whatever it is, the answer is yes.
Will you give me $1 million? So Linda,
I still don't, we still can't, nobody has been able to send me the written report on the analysis of the tightening last year of the laser scan. So I don't even really understand to the degree what they saw, because we don't even have complete documents, you know. So I find it, I have a real hard time. I'm not going to vote in favor of spending more money on something we just are totally inept at and haven't gotten our stuff together.
I don't know whether we need a vote on this, but Jim, it sounds like you have 3 trustees that are saying, let's do it. My opinion is as follows. It's disappointing, again, that we spend money and we don't follow up on the things that we're supposed to do. And we can digress into other areas, but it's a pattern that has to stop. Number 2, I'm not convinced, and Brad, you're smarter at buildings than I am, but I sat in the CIP and I recall the architect commenting on the turnbuckles, commenting on the building movement, and it's not clear to me that more measurements is going to inform anything. The building turnbuckles need to be lashed. And even those turnbuckles themselves, the architect is being extremely polite. They're not, he claimed they're not connected to anything.
But those are the old ones, I think. Those are.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have a report. That's why we don't know.
I think, so we don't have a piece of paper that tells us. So, and I'm with you on that one, Linda. I think my view is I'm not supportive of spending $9,500. I want to go straight to understanding the costs, the complexity, and the timeframes to do number 2 or number 3. And if somebody wants to raise their hand and say the building should not be open because it's not safe, raise your hand and do that. But we don't have any pieces of paper that I don't want to spend the money. So do we need to vote on this protocol wise? Do I need to call a vote to authorize?
We can't, I really don't think we should make a decision this evening. I think based on what I'm hearing this evening, I will have it as an agenda item for the Board of Selectmen's meeting for next Wednesday to take up.
Okay. Yep. Fair enough. Thank you.
A week to think about it.
Yep. And if there's any supporting documentation that you can resurrect that could sway the vote, that would be great. But you know, again, it's disappointing. We have these things time and again, but that's the way it goes. Any other business for the trustees tonight? No? Jim?
I'll move we adjourn.
Hang on a second. Hang on a minute. Jim, you got anything for us?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Senecal, what were you going to say?
I move we adjourn.
Second that.
Any discussion about adjourning or not? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Say aye. Oh, let me roll call you guys. I got a roll call.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
Linda, trustee
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
trustee Senecal,
Yes.
Mr. Bowers.
You had it.
Mr. Bowers. Yes, okay. And Mr. Harriman.
Yes.
Okay, we're out of here. Jim, thanks a lot for helping us through this thing. We'll see you
Thanks,
all
guys.
next week. Have a great, stay safe.